Welcome back to the Exposure History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. General Anton Dostler is chained to a wood post in a military stockade whose last moments are recorded on camera. After he was found guilty of war crimes, American soldiers ensnared him to the firing squad. The picture displays the dark side of military justice because the general is under the punishment of the execution of unarmed prisoners. Moscow has Soviet soldiers marching with defeated Nazi banners lowered towards the ground in humiliating defeat. The flags that were once floating above Germany controlled lands now fly in submission at the Victory Day celebration. This is an effective demonstration of the total turnaround of circumstances when the symbols of Nazi might that were once feared by everyone are shown as war relics. This is a view of two skeletal prisoners holding their little belongings, having been freed by the Japanese detention. Their pale faces and skeleton bodies are the story of months or years of the cruel jails and hunger. Even when they are in such dreadful state, there is some light of relief and hope as they are about to go home at last. Exulting Soviet soldiers swamp a Moscow train station and their war is finally over. The station is turned into a reunioning and celebrating place because these men have not been able to see their families in years. Their faces are tired and at the same time full of happiness of survival and homecoming. The destroyed city is stretched out beneath with only some traces of new buildings appearing amongst the ruins. A year after the atomic bomb, most of Hiroshima is still an apocalypse of rubble and demolished constructions. The rebuilding process is slow as it demonstrates the extent to which the weapon wiped a whole city out of existence. A lone figure stands amid the charred remains and twisted metal that was once his home. Everything around him has been reduced to ash and debris by American bombing raids. He surveys the destruction, one person among thousands who lost everything in the war. The Soviet photographer poses with fellow soldiers near Berlin's famous Brandenburg Gate after the city's capture. His camera has documented some of the war's most important moments from the Soviet perspective. This image captures the photographer himself, now part of the historic scene he came to record. A fighter aircraft of the U.S. is flying right over the rubble of the mountain hideout of Hitler at Berchtesgaden that has been bombed up. Bomb craters dot the surface of what remains of the formerly great buildings. The bombing of this symbol of Nazi authority gets a simple message that there was no place where Allies could reach. About 1 hour after the atomic bomb was used, a huge column of smoke and debris is being raised miles high. The mushroom-formed cloud has turned into the most famous and frightening image of a nuclear warfare. Under this colossal plume are tens of thousands of people who have already died, tens of thousands more who are also condemned to death by the radiation. One of the bombing runs is made by an American bomber flying above a Japanese warship that is passing by the coast of Formosa. The destroyer is evading since the bombs are targeting it and are dropping on top of it. This aerial photo shows the shot just before the strike in the continuing war on destroying the naval strength of Japan. In the next shot, American soldiers proceed through the rugged terrain where the body of a Japanese combatant who had been killed during the previous combat lies. The soldier who is dead is lying on a broken tree, trapped in the carnage that ruined the woodland of his surroundings. The troops that are advancing look at the dead man only briefly as they move further into enemy land. The first of 20 Japanese soldiers comes out of their hiding place on Iwo Jima with his hands raised high in surrender. The group had refused to give up for days, hiding in caves while the battle moved past them. Now, finally, they emerge defeated and ready to become prisoners of war. Gunners pour streams of bullets into a Japanese suicide plane that's already burning as it falls toward the USS Sangamon. The Kamikaze pilot intended to crash into the carrier's deck, but the anti-aircraft fire stops him just short of his target. The plane will hit the water moments later, though another attack will successfully damage the ship. The aircraft carrier is struck by 2 suicide planes in less than 30 seconds and then becomes covered with massive flames which cover the deck. The terrible attacks claimed hundreds of crewmen who were killed in an instant and hundreds more severely wounded. The photo takes the fire intensity, which was likely to drown the whole ship. The smoke is high in the air, and the crew desperately tries to contain the flames and salvage their ship before it goes down in flames. Armored vehicles of the American Army are searching the borders of the capital city of Okinawa, passing slowly through the devastated streets. The tanks move slowly, keeping a watch to see whether there are any Japanese defenders still in the ruins. This is the last offensive towards the realization of one of the last great goals prior to the mainland Japan. One of these soldiers is sitting in a large hole blown through a wall of a theater and gazes over the entirely ruined city. It is a deserted place where no building still stands, but just frames made of skeletons of buildings which were inhabited by more than 400,000 inhabitants. Bombardment has destroyed all structures, practically leaving behind rubble and destruction. A group of giant American planes fly over the most holy mountain of Japan, heading their way to drop their lethal load. The enemy aircraft flying over the mountain Fuji freely indicates the total control of the American forces over the Japanese air. No warriors are seen to stand up and face them on their way to the targets. The Japanese city is being burned down within minutes, with hundreds of incendiary bombs setting fire to whole neighborhoods. The city will be burnt down, and the fire will be self-consuming. This aerial view displays the dreadful success of the firebomb attacks in Japan on its wooden cities. The city glows bright against the darkness as fires rage out of control following a massive bombing raid. Over 170 American bombers dropped thousands of incendiary bombs on this aluminum production center. When morning comes, over 95% of the city will be nothing but ashes. A single narrow strip of residential buildings somehow survived while everything around them was burned or blasted to nothing. The contrast shows the random nature of destruction as fire jumped from building to building. Most residents weren't as lucky as those living in this untouched strip. The scientist's silhouette appears in front of the first atomic bomb as he oversees its final assembly at the Trinity test site. This device will prove whether the theories about nuclear fission can create the most powerful weapon ever built. Within days, it will be detonated in the New Mexico desert, changing warfare forever. The nuclear explosion is seen to be an ideal ball of pure energy only 25 milliseconds after it has been detonated. The fireball is ejected at an unprecedented speed in all directions, and as a result, it generates temperatures that are worse than those of the sun. This 1/10 of a second is what is photographed. This is what marked the beginning of the atomic age. American bombers drop hundreds of small bombs into the building and docks which are already on fire. The fires will be ignited with each incendiary device, making the damage further spread. The camera is focused on the bombs as they are thrown in the air, and they are yet to land. Japanese capital stands only with lots of destruction on a square of concrete and steel buildings. The wooden houses that had covered the neighborhoods burned so thoroughly that even the rubble is now gone. This perspective was captured months after the bombing, in which the extent of attacks on civilian areas was horrific. A giant American airplane bomber is trailing behind heavy smoke and flames trying to remain in the air over Japan. The plane crew struggles to maintain control as fire engulfs the plane. The photo tells the desperate circumstances in which they are attempting to get safety before the plane crashes. The bomb is in a wheeled cradle mounted on the ground in a hole and is going to be cranked into the bomb bay of the Enola Gay. The device itself appears to be incredibly destructive in terms of its size and power, as it is very simple looking. In this photo, the weapon is presented several hours before it will fall on Hiroshima. The atomic explosion lifts up in a huge column 20,000 feet above the city that was destroyed. The mushroom cloud diffuses on top of the top, and the ground is filled with smoke over a mile. This photograph taken from the bombing plane shows the terrible result of the first nuclear weapon used in war. The crew members look down at what they've done, witnessing destruction on a scale never before seen in human history. A blanket of smoke hangs over the flattened city the morning after the atomic bomb exploded. Nearly 80,000 people died instantly, with tens of thousands more dying slowly from radiation and injuries. The photograph shows the immediate aftermath of the most destructive single weapon ever used. The intense heat from the nuclear explosion scorched the bridge's surface, dark except where concrete pillars and railings blocked the thermal radiation. These permanent shadow-like marks show exactly where objects stood when the bomb detonated. The scarred bridge became one of the most striking pieces of evidence of the bomb's power. Military medics work frantically to help victims burned and injured by the atomic bomb. The survivors lie on the ground receiving emergency care as more wounded continue to arrive. The medical teams face injuries unlike anything they've encountered, caused by both blast effects and radiation. The handle of this gas storage tank produced an ideal silhouette that had been impressed on the high metal surface by the high-intensity flash of light in the atomic explosion. The shadow is permanent only 2 kilometers away, where the bomb was detonated. These weird shadows were everywhere in Hiroshima, indicating where the thermal pulse had been blocked by objects. One soldier is seen walking through a place where nothing whatsoever is left standing. The atomic bomb reduced to ashes all the buildings within miles as the point of detonation. In the photo, even the whole neighborhoods are erased, and all that exists is flat rubble and debris. The second atomic bomb is made ready to be loaded in the aircraft, which will transport it to Nagasaki. This bomb has a different design as the one used to drop Hiroshima, yet it promises to result in the same or a more deadly outcome. Japanese people have observed what happened in Hiroshima, but it still does not want to surrender, resulting in the second nuclear attack. The second atomic bomb explosion comes in the form of another gigantic explosion above a Japanese city. It kills approximately 40,000 people on the spot, and another 25,000 were wounded during the explosion. The photo captures the horrid instance when nuclear weapons were applied in war, the second, and to date, the last time. Shortly after the bombing, people start the excessive work of clearing the destroyed city. They are in the midst of total destruction, attempting to find ways through the debris. This early photograph from Japanese sources shows the immediate aftermath before American forces arrived. A destroyed Catholic church stands as the only recognizable structure on a hill where an entire neighborhood once existed. Everything around the cathedral was obliterated by the atomic bomb's blast wave. The ruined building becomes a stark landmark in the otherwise featureless wasteland. The doctor poses for a photograph while suffering from radiation sickness caused by the Nagasaki bombing. As a medical professional, he understands exactly what's happening to his body as the radiation kills him slowly. He will die just days after this picture was taken. An 18-year-old prisoner stares directly into the camera, her face gaunt from starvation and abuse. She's among the survivors found when Allied forces liberate the concentration camp. Her haunted expression reflects years of suffering in the Nazi prison system. A German soldier is aiming his rifle towards a Jewish man in a mass execution in Ukraine. The victim is brought to his death in a field where thousands of other people have already been killed. This image was in the album of a German soldier and recorded the systematic murders of sections of the Jewish population. Jewish fighters who were taken captive in the ghetto are interrogated by German soldiers. The prisoners are shown with their hands up as they are aware that they are about to die. In the background, the ghetto is on fire following the onslaught of German forces that overcame the opposition with military might. A man is dragging a cart with corpses down the ghetto streets, where people die every day because of hunger. These carts go round every morning and gather the bodies of the people who died during the night. The bodies will be removed to be cremated in mass graves. A small child is surrounded by a gang of Jews who are being marched out of the ghetto under gun control. What sets around the civilians are German soldiers who surround them with the belongings that they can hold in their hands. This was one of the most well-known photos in recording the Holocaust. The face of the boy is angry and scared because he is kicked out of his home, not knowing how horrible the destiny of him and other people will be. Nothing is left behind regarding the Jewish neighborhood as the German forces ransacked all buildings in an orderly way. Dynamite was employed by the SS to demolish whole city blocks, making the ghetto a thing of the past. The 56,000 Jews that were taken captive in the uprising had very few survivors. Jewish prisoners crowd together in the French detention facility on their way to concentration camps in the east. These people were arrested by French police and held at Drancy before being shipped to Auschwitz and other death camps. Very few of the 13,000 Jews sent from here would ever return. The teenage girl smiles for the camera, unaware of the terrible fate awaiting her. Within 3 years, she and her family will be discovered hiding from the Nazis and sent to concentration camps. She will die of disease at Bergen-Belsen, but her diary will survive to tell her story. A large group of Jewish prisoners from Hungary stand on the platform after arriving at the extermination camp. SS guards will soon separate them into those who will work and those who will be killed immediately. Most of the people in this photograph will be dead within hours of its being taken. The 14-year-old Polish girl is looking at the camera with a bloody lip and a bruised face. She was beaten by a female guard just before this identification photograph was shot at Auschwitz. The panic-stricken teenage will be killed in the camp within 3 months, killed together with her mother. One of the arms of a former prisoner displays the horrible effects of the medical experiments performed by the Nazis on the individual using chemicals. This was the person that doctors burnt intentionally using phosphorus in order to experiment with various cures. The picture captures one among numerous inhumane experiments that were conducted on the prisoners of the concentration camps. British young children are also sitting amid their possessions after their houses were destroyed by German bombing. Thousands of families are left homeless by Battle of Britain. Such children are awaiting to be taken to a safer place as the air war rages in their city. The column of black smoke and flames emitted by the battleship superstructure following Japanese bomb piercing through the deck are huge. The ship is in the process of sinking at the Pearl Harbor, where more than 1,000 crew members are trapped. This photograph is an expression of the crushing surprise assault that thrust America into the war. The process through which German soldiers systematically destroy their neighborhood through the use of their guns on Jewish civilians is shown as they bully Jewish civilians into a street. The individuals are heading toward an unpredictable destiny, with majority of them on their way to deportation and death. This picture turned out to be one of the strongest images of atrocities of the Holocaust. The enemy Navy warship is in the line of fire of an American submarine that is about to fire. The view, using the periscope, reveals the destroyer just before it is hit by the torpedoes and sunk down. This picture shows the battle against submarines as seen by the hunter. The maimed American soldiers are sitting together on the beach following the bloody D-Day landing. They wait for evacuation to field hospitals while the battle continues around them. Despite their wounds, these men survived one of the bloodiest beach assaults in military history. Anti-aircraft fire hits an enemy aircraft attempting to attack the USS Kitcun Bay. The plane falls in flames toward the ocean as gunners continue firing. The photograph freezes the moment when the threat is eliminated. Coast Guard sailors watch a huge plume of water shoot up from an underwater explosion during convoy escort duty. The depth charge targets a German submarine lurking beneath the surface. This dangerous cat-and-mouse game plays out across the Atlantic throughout the war. A French civilian openly cries as German soldiers march through Paris after conquering his country. His face shows the grief and humiliation of watching enemy troops occupy the capital. This powerful image captures the emotional devastation of military defeat. B-17S from America hit a ball-bearing plant and aircraft repair facility in occupied Paris. The aerial shot depicts explosions and smoke coming out of the strategic targets on the ground. The raid is intended to disable German production of war, but the aim is to avoid civilian operations. It takes days of fierce combat before the Marines hoist the American flag on the summit of the island. It is an event that turns out to be one of the most recognizable photos of the war. The flag is a representation of triumph following one of the most bloody battles in the history of the Marine Corps. An image of the 6 men straining together to raise the pole will be a source of inspiration to a nation and a lasting symbol of sacrifice and bravery. A group of 4 children, a mother and a dog, are hiding in a cave on the hillside, and an American Marine patrol finds them. The frightened family hid itself in the midst of the violent combat that was erupting all over the island. The Marines strive to get them to surrender without fighting instead of dying, as many other Japanese civilians did. As the soldiers are heading to the front lines in Belgium, they are given a warm meal. Bringing hot food to soldiers in the war in winter is a way of boosting morale and fighting capacity. These men take time to have a short of comfort before they go back into battle. One of the Marines is climbing the top with a flamethrower in hand to assault a Japanese fortification. The gun will channel jets of burning fuel into the pillbox to kill or evict the defenders. This is a life-threatening occupation that involves getting to the fortifications of the enemy during firing. American tanks and other equipment sit wrecked on the black volcanic sand of the invasion beach. Japanese defenders destroyed these vehicles during the landing and subsequent fighting. The losses show the intensity of enemy resistance on the island. American soldiers and a tank advance through thick smoke filling a German town during the final weeks of the war. The smoke provides cover as they move through streets that might still hold enemy fighters. By this point, German resistance is collapsing but remains dangerous. A wounded soldier lies on a pile of life jackets in a landing craft heading away from Iwo Jima's beach. He was hit during the first wave of the invasion and now heads to a ship for medical treatment. The improvised stretcher shows the makeshift nature of battlefield medicine. An American jeep drives past the ruins of a large church demolished during fighting after D-Day. The entire town of Valognes suffered heavy damage as Allied forces pushed inland from the beaches. Combat engineers now work to clear rubble and restore roads through the destruction. The aircraft carrier burns intensely after kamikaze attacks hit the ship in quick succession. Hundreds of crew members died in the explosions and fires that followed. The photograph shows the devastating effectiveness of Japanese suicide tactics. The famous London church stands intact while fires rage all around it during the massive German bombing raid. The cathedral survived the worst night of the Blitz through luck and the efforts of firefighters. Its survival became a symbol of British resilience during the air war. American soldiers wade through chest-deep water toward the beach while under intense enemy fire. Many men are hit before reaching shore during this terrifying approach to the landing zone. The photograph captures the chaos and danger of the D-Day invasion. Soldiers pull men from the water after their landing craft was destroyed by German fire off Omaha Beach. The rescuers work urgently to save their fellow troops from drowning while under continued enemy attack. Many men died in the water, weighed down by equipment, never reaching the beach. The photograph captures the desperate effort to save lives, even as the battle continues to rage around them. The triumphant Red Army troops march in precise formation, holding the captured Nazi banners toward the ground in a display of complete domination. Each flag represents a defeated German unit, now reduced to a war trophy in Moscow's grand celebration. The soldiers' faces show pride and relief as they participate in this historic moment of victory. This ceremonial humiliation of Nazi symbols marks the definitive end of Hitler's dream of conquering the Soviet Union. A Marine operates his flamethrower while 2 riflemen provide cover during the assault on Iwo Jima. The 3 men work together as a deadly team, the rifleman protecting the flamethrower operator while he prepares to burn out Japanese defenders. This coordinated attack method proved essential for clearing the heavily fortified enemy positions dug deep into the volcanic island. Navy aviators crowd together on the carrier deck, listening to last-minute briefing before their mission to bomb Tokyo. The pilots absorb crucial information about targets, weather conditions, and enemy defenses they'll face over the Japanese capital. Within minutes, these men will climb into their cockpits and take off to strike at the heart of enemy territory. Canadian soldiers from the 3rd Infantry Division survey the remains of Saint-Martin de la Trinité Church after fierce fighting to remove German forces. The building structure shows heavy damage from the bombardment and combat during Operation Windsor. The troops pause among the ruins after successfully driving out the enemy defenders who had fortified this strategic position near the Kamikaze airfield. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on anything.